second song.
Mr.
One from the opera, one from the musical. And you're going to do the same thing that you did on Thursday, okay? So you should have, I know you wrote instrumentation, that's fine. I just didn't want it to be as long. So instrumentation, can you turn your chair to look at me, please? Instrumentation, vocal style, and staging. Does anybody have any questions about staging? Because I know there were a lot of questions on Thursday. Does everybody understand what that means? And now you're going to be able to see the staging of both of them. Okay? So I'm going to turn the lights off, and we're going to watch the one from the opera first. Can everybody see the TV? It's really small, so maybe you want to pull your chairs up here in the middle somewhere. No one's moving, so I'm going to assume that you can see. Yes? Okay, please be writing things as we're going to discuss it afterwards.
This is the end of my portion of the musical versus opera lesson. Miss Suck started the project the next day, but we were revisiting the chart with the opera versus musical, and we watched two clips, one from Aida the musical, My Strongest Suit, and then one that was similar from the opera to My Strongest Suit. So this is me explaining what's going to happen, and then, the previous thing was me explaining what was going to happen, and then I'll show some clips after this of the kids talking about what they saw.
Symbols? Okay. Someone else? Heart? Silence. Someone else? What about stuff that we heard last Thursday? We can put back in this box. String instruments, okay. Something else? That's it? That's all we heard? Okay. What about for the musical? Bongo drums? Can everybody read what I'm writing? Yep. Piano? Anything else? Something else? That was all you heard? It's just piano and drums? Okay. What about vocal style for the opera? You can say things from last Thursday as well. High pitch, okay. But in the musical, did we hear high pitches? Yes? How did that sound different from when there were high pitches in the opera?
I found it interesting that the kids said that the opera was, they always said, when we were asking what the difference in vocal style was between operas and musicals, they always say that operas are more high-pitched. And so I asked the question, but in the musical we heard high pitches as well, right? And they said yes. So it's just interesting to note what they hear and what they don't hear, and how they explain it. So they weren't really able to explain the difference between the high pitches in the opera and the high pitches in the musical, so we tried to talk about that a little bit.
So the opera sounded old-fashioned? Okay, you kind of just said the opposite. So how did it sound old-fashioned, and how did it sound modern? Okay, we already said faster. So all things.
The other sense was that musicals were more modern in relation to operas, and we were talking about what that could mean, and a lot of the answers from the students were that the musical was faster, and we also talked about the instrumentation, so just explaining what's happening. It's hard. all in all, I was happy with the observations that the students were making. It was definitely very teacher-centered, just like our observation day was. But the students were listening and were watching and were observing, so I was happy with that.